Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. Some big news coming in, top of this bulletin. Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, has made a comment on the Iran-Israel war. That's the big news coming in. Conflict between Israel and Iran could start again, perhaps soon. A big remark from President Trump, who only a day ago was claiming that he brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Trump says Iran has huge advantage, don't see them getting back involved in nuclear. So while no nuclear program or enrichment program, the US president over here very clearly saying that the Israel-Iran conflict is not over just yet and perhaps could start soon. Listen in.
Both tired, exhausted. They fought very, very hard and very viciously, very violently. And they were both satisfied to go home and get out. And can it start again? I guess someday it can. It could maybe start soon.
Well, that's a big statement coming in days after a very, very fragile situation in West Asia. Donald Trump has come out and said that the Israel-Iran conflict could perhaps start again. Now, he is at the Hague for the NATO summit. United States President welcomed NATO's decision to hike spending for the common defense at their annual summit. NATO members meeting in the Netherlands endorsed a higher defense spending goal of 5% of the GDP by 2035, a response to a demand by Trump and to Europeans' fears that Russia poses a growing threat to their security. And then he told reporters in the media briefing that when he spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin, he told him that Putin needs to help him end the Ukraine war and not with the deal with Iran. Answering to reporters' questions of how he couldn't end the Russia-Ukraine war, despite being in office for 5 months and 5 days, he has stopped other wars like the Iran-Israel conflict. And most importantly, he repeated that he brokered ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Listen in to the excerpts from the press conference.
How are you?
You once said that you would end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. You later said you said that sarcastically.
Well, of course it was sarcastic.
But you've now been in office for 5 months and 5 days. Why have you not been able to end the Ukraine war?
Because it's more difficult than people would have any idea. Vladimir Putin has been more difficult. Frankly, I had some problems with Zelensky. You may have read about him. And it's been more difficult than other wars. I mean, look, we just ended a war in 12 days that was simmering for 30 years, frankly. We ended Rwanda and the Congo. It's coming to sign the documents. We've already signed basic documents, but they're coming, I think, to the White House on Friday. We ended Serbia was going to go at it. But maybe the most important of all, India and Pakistan. And that wasn't whether or not they may someday have nukes like we're talking about in the Middle East, like we're talking about with Israel and Iran. This is they have nuclear weapons. I ended that with a series of phone calls on trade. I said, look, if you're going to go fighting each other, it was getting very bad. You know how bad that last attack was. It was really bad. If you're going to go fighting each other, we're not doing any trade deal. No, 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 you have to do a trade deal. I said, we're not doing any trade deal. And in fact, I had the general, who was very impressive. The general from Pakistan was in my office last week. You know, Prime Minister Modi is a great friend of mine. He's a great gentleman. He's a great man. And I got them to reason. I said, we're not doing a trade deal if you're going to fight. And if you're going to fight each other, we're not doing a trade deal. And you know what? He said, no, I want to do the trade deal. We stopped the nuclear war. Go ahead. I mean, it's possible. I know one thing. He'd like to settle. He'd like to get out of this thing. It's a mess for him. He called the other day. He said, can I help you with Iran? I said, no, you can help me with Russia. Because, you know, in the last few weeks, we took care of India and Pakistan, Kosovo, Serbia. I think on Friday we have coming in the Congo is coming in, and Rwanda is coming in. That was a vicious war that went on, a machete war, heads chopped off all over Africa. They're coming in. We did 2 others in addition to that. Nobody's ever done anything like this. No, I consider him a person that's, I think, been misguided. I'm very surprised, actually. I thought we would have had that settled easy. I've settled 4 of them in the meantime. But he did call up, and he said, he's close to Iran. He'd like to help us get a settlement. I said, no, you help me get a settlement with Russia. And I think we're going to be doing that, too. Yeah.
Embroiled in controversy yet again over the strikes on nuclear plants at NATO, flanked by his defense secretary and secretary of state, Donald Trump rubbished the initial U.S. defense report on Iran's strikes, which said that the nuclear facilities were not impacted. He said repeatedly that America obliterated Iran's nuclear capability. Here's a report.
We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration. We think we hit them so hard and so fast they didn't get to move. And if you knew about that material, it's very hard and very dangerous to move.
The US President Donald Trump had used the same word obliteration to describe the impact of the US deployment of 30,000-pound bombs on Iran's nuclear program earlier as well. But that claim appeared to be contradicted by an initial assessment by one of his administration's intelligence agencies. The report claims Iran's enriched uranium stocks had not been eliminated and the country's nuclear program, much of which is buried deep underground, may have been set back only a month or 2. The preliminary report produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency found that the strikes sealed off the entrances to 2 of the facilities, but did not collapse underground buildings. Revealed to American media, the report suggests some centrifuges still remained intact after the attacks. But the American president and the defense secretary contradicts it. Israel too sings the same tune as the Trump administration.
I'm prepared to say here that the assessment is that we have dealt a significant blow to the nuclear program, and I can say we have set it back by years.
Iran's parliament, in the meantime, has approved a bill on Wednesday to suspend cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog. IAEA on top priority wants to get its inspectors back to Iran's nuclear facilities to assess the impact of US and Israeli military strikes and verify its stocks of enriched uranium.
I had received a letter from the Iranian foreign minister saying that they had taken protective measures already. They did not get into details into what that meant, but clearly that was the implicit meaning of that. So we can imagine that this material is there. We have the situation that we have, and we have to work and to continue. What is clear is that in any case, the technological knowledge is there, and the industrial capacity is there that no one can deny. So we need to work together with them. Then you can, value whether it's a matter of 2 months or 3 months. That is perhaps not so important. What is important is that we need, and I think the minister just said it, we need a long-standing and something that will stand the test of time.
The American president faces tough criticism from both Republicans and the Democrats at home for postponing classified briefings for Senate and House members. US lawmakers are looking for more answers about President Trump's unilateral decision to launch military action, arguing he could have gone to Congress for approval or at least provided more justification for the attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities. The defense report at this juncture puts the POTUS in a tight spot, both at home and abroad. Bureau Report, India Today.
For a man who's considered anti-war, also his base absolutely anti-war and not very happy or convinced with the fact that he entered the West Asia conflict between Iran and Israel. I'm being joined in this exclusive conversation with Pastor Mark Burns, who is the spiritual advisor to U.S. President Donald Trump. Pastor Burns, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. Wanted to understand exactly what happened and in what frame of mind do you think President Donald Trump decided to enter the Israel-Iran conflict?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Let me just say this. I am to congratulate President Trump for leading, because of his decision-making, leading a very high, complex military operation by bombing with precision Iranians' nuclear sites. 14 30,000-pound cluster bombs that are designed to go in mountains, go underground. 14 of them with precision struck Iranians' nuclear sites. And so that is a preventive measure. The whole goal is that we have peace with Iran. Iran, unfortunately, has been, and I'm speaking about the government of Iran, not some of the innocent, peaceful people of Iran, but the government has been the center of terrorism in that region, attacking Israel, attacking American assets. And so this has been an ongoing process for years. And so to allow nuclear weapons in the hands of actively known terrorists has backed Hamas, has backed the Houthis in Yemen, has backed Hezbollah. They have been, again, the backing of terrorism in that region with the goal to bring death to America. And so this was the president's focus. Again, remember, he gave the Iranians a 60-day heads up that Israel was going to bomb. And remember, you got to give President Trump credit because he initially stopped Israel from doing that. He wanted to bring peace. And right now, the president is not calling for a regime change, but he's wanting to bring an end to the nuclear weapon, and they just done it. The president just done it, destroyed it.
But Pastor Burns, President Trump just spoke a while ago, and he said that while he tried to broker peace between Iran and Israel, that it is temporary and that a conflict between the two countries could start again.
Well, you got to remember, 30 years. I mean, this is something that it's going to take a lot of onions to pull back. I mean, they have been at it for years. This is not something that just started. But the fact that the president was able to end a 12-day conflict, and that came after the bombs dropped. And so at the end of the day, our enemies are those who are declaring that they are enemies to the United States of America. They know that President Trump means business. He is not just talking about peace through strength. It is not a theory. It's a warning label. And the rest of the world knows that. And so the goal is that remind our enemies and those who declare, because again, President Trump desires to be friends with everybody. And I believe, because he's a deal maker, if you're making money, economics is great. The Iranian people can live well. The American people economy can do well. Israeli economy can do well. It's all about making money for everybody. But when you're calling for the death of America, when you are encouraging the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas in the region to up their attacks on American assets, when you send 6 weak missiles to Qatar to try to attack U.S. base, which was very weak, by the way. It was laughable that was their response.
But it was a message.
Well, but again, our message was very clear. 30,000 bunker bombs destroying, putting their nuclear sites, destroying it, obliterating, as the president stated, and putting them back for years. I mean, this was technology that they had, and it's years to get, and now it's gone in one day because of the leadership of President Trump. And that makes a safer world. In the end of the day, that makes a safer world. That includes India. That makes a safer world.
Right. Pastor Mark Burns, only hoping that he can bring about peace as you're saying he would. Thank you so much for joining us here on the network.
Thank you.
Now, diplomacy took a back seat and theatrics took over. President Trump dropped an F-bomb on live television while slamming Iran and Israel over a shaky ceasefire. Moments later, Vice President J.D. Vance flipped the middle finger at critics. Is this crisis management or chaos in plain sight?
It was diplomacy, but Trump style. When tensions between Iran and the West were at its peak, US President Donald Trump dropped a different kind of bomb, an F-bomb, on live television, middle of a media interaction. In an expletive-laden rant, Trump lashed out at both Iran and US ally Israel for violating ceasefire brokered by him just hours earlier.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what they're doing. Do you understand that?
A day later, he even defended his statement at the NATO summit at The Hague.
They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
And then minutes later, he posted on Truth Social, pleading with Israel in all caps, "Do not drop those bombs." It is not only the POTUS, even his VP was quite expletive. While the president tried to bring Israeli warplanes home, his vice president, J.D. Vance, was busy launching a political missile of his own with a raised middle finger.
Trust me, in Washington, D.C., they have this thing where I think it means we're number one in Washington, D.C., but all the pink-haired people throw up this sign, and I think, you know, that means we're number one, right? I choose to take that as that symbol in Washington.
The vice president used the Republican dinner to mock his critics and double down on Trump's iron strategy, boasting that US strikes destroyed Iran's nuclear program with 0 casualties. As missiles stay grounded in West Asia, it is the American leadership firing off the loudest shots with words and gestures that speak volumes. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's now take a look at some other stories from across the world in World at a Glance.
US President Donald Trump has been nominated for the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize once again. This time for brokering a ceasefire between Israel and Iran by Republican Congressman Buddy Carter. Though senior Ukrainian lawmaker Alexander Merikoz, one of the Trump's former backers for the Nobel bid, has withdrawn his nomination for failing to end the war in Ukraine. Pakistan has officially nominated the current POTUS for his decisive diplomatic intervention and pivotal leadership during the recent India-Pakistan conflict. Award-winning Indian-American filmmaker Meera Nair's 33-year-old son won the New York's Democratic mayoral primary contest. Entering the campaign as a virtual unknown, Mamdani stunned former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo with a tight race to the finishing line. Cuomo conceded defeat and said he had called Mamdani to congratulate him. More than 80,000 people were displaced in southwest China's Guizhou province after heavy rain. Footage aired by state broadcaster CCTV showed floodwaters cascading down the floors of a shopping mall. Rescuers used boats to evacuate stranded residents. The mountainous province of Guizhou and other parts of southwest China have been battered by heavy rains since last week as the annual East Asia monsoon kicked into high gear, breaking rainfall records in parts of China.
That's all in this edition of World Today.